Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to this workshop organized by the iSpaces group of the Big Data Value Association, together with the European Commission and DG Connect. My name is Daniel Alonso, and I am with the ITI, Research and Technological Center in Valencia, Spain, and I am chairing the iSpaces group of the BDVA. I see many familiar faces here in the audience, so I guess that most of you are familiarized with this iSpace concept. But just let me tell you that iSpaces term was coined back in 2014 by the Big Data Value Association, and it was included in the first version of the SRIA at that time. And well, basically, an iSpace is supposed to provide an experimentation environment to small actors like SMEs, startups, and so on, to provide them with all the blocks, all the tools necessary for having their data-driven solution services and so on quickly tested and piloted. Well, from that time, for 2014, many things have happened and many instruments has appeared in the European landscape. And also the iSpace concept has evolved quite a lot. First, to give an answer, a response to the needs of the industry and of the society at the local and regional level, but also to keep aligned, to be aligned with these new instruments that are arising in the past, but also will be arising in the future. The last evolution, the last step of the iSpaces is to collaborate themselves to create a kind of a federation of iSpaces, of data-driven spaces. And under this project, EU has for data that will be we start in September, in early September this year. So the objective of this workshop is basically to explore the role of these BDVA iSpaces in particular, but that data innovation spaces in general will play in this new European landscape that is arising now, also with the new framework program. And we would like to do so by exploring three perspectives, a triple dimension of these iSpaces. First one, how they bring innovation, data-driven innovation to their regional ecosystem. The second one is based on the capitalize of data, how to make the best, get value from data. And the third dimension is about providing and testing and experimentation environment for companies, SMEs, and startups. So to do so, we are glad to present a really amazing panel of relevant speakers that we have here with us. I guess most of you already know most of them, but in any case, let me provide a short introduction. So we have Anne-Marie Sassen from DG Connect, European Commission, with the Unit of Technologies and Systems for Digitizing Industry. We have Kimo Rossi from DG Connect, the Unit of Data and Policy. Cécile Huet from the Unit of the AI and Robotics. We have Reinhardt is the Secretary General from EU Robotics, and also very much involved in projects like Rodan and also DIHs. And Daniel Said from ITI, he's also a member of the board of directors of the Big Data Value Association, and he's also involved in the coordination of this new project EU has for data. So based on that, let me share with you the agenda for today. Now we are in the introduction part by myself. Then we will have an initial statement from each of the speakers based on the domains that they are based, okay? So they will provide some context and they will set up the scene for the subsequent discussion that we'll have. So then we will have a panel discussion based on several questions that I will ask to all of them, but also questions that we will also take from the audience. And finally, if time allows, we'll have possibly a final remark from each of them, and we will close the session, okay? So before giving the floor to the first speaker, let me share with you some practicalities. In principle, be sure that you have your control panel extended. Otherwise, you will not be able to access all the functionalities of GoToWebinar. So as my slide is showing, go to this panel. If you don't have all the functionalities, just click on the red arrow and you will have all this panel extended, okay? On the other hand, be aware that only the presenters and the moderators can speak. So all of you will be on mute. But if you want to interact with the speakers or with the panelists, you go to the question area. And also, if you have any question, this is the area where you have to put your question. Okay, we will address most of your questions. I think we will try to address most of your questions during the panel discussion. Okay, and finally, also I have to say that all the material of the webinar, the presentation, the recording, and also a post webinar report that we will prepare will be available both in the Big Data Value Association webpage, but also in the webpage of the PPP, the Big Data Value PPP. Okay, so stay tuned because all the material will be available there. So this is all from my side. Just with no more preamble, I will give the floor to Anne-Marie, who will be giving her initial statement about the DIH and the new program. So Anne-Marie, the floor is yours, and you can start.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Danielle and BDVA, thank you very much for organizing this webinar. I think the role of data is becoming more important every day, so it's very nice that here we have the opportunity to explain what the European Commission wants to do to support well, first of all, that we produce more data, but then also that all the economy makes better use of all the data that we generate. And our main investment tool for that will be a Digital Europe program. So I want, Danielle, if you can go to the next slide. I want to start with explaining you very briefly what Digital Europe program is about. So it's a totally new program. We have never had it before. And what it is about investments in digital capacities, because in order to support the digital transformation of the European society, we need more digital capacities, like we need roads and bridges to be able to do our transport. We also need digital capacities in order to support the transition to another more digital society. And Digital Europe program is a 9.2 billion euro program that has been proposed by the European Commission. And at the moment it is one of the parts of the multi-annual financial framework, and the member states, the European Commission and the European Parliament are still agreeing on the final overall budget for this program. But given the fact that with COVID-19 we have seen how important it is that we can continue working digital, that we can do things not only physical. The Commission, in its new proposal, has stated that it would really like to keep the 9.2 billion euro for Digital Europe program, and we want then to invest that in several areas. The first area is high performance computing. So there we want to acquire more advanced computers to be able to be used by anyone in Europe. We want to have more investments in artificial intelligence, and there especially there will be 3 areas, which is common data spaces, where Kimo will explain more about it later. There will be large testing and experimentation facilities, which Cecile will explain, and there will also be a scale-up of the European AI platform, AI on demand platform, and Cecile will also explain that later. There will be an important investment in cybersecurity, where, for instance, we will develop certification schemes that all companies could use to certify that their products are secure. And then there will also be advanced digital skills pillar, which will have master courses in AI, HPC and cybersecurity, but also short-term training courses for companies to have training of several weeks into AI, cybersecurity, of artificial intelligence. Because if we have all those capacities, we also need to have the people with the right skills who can make use of who can program the supercomputers, who can use artificial intelligence, and who know how to make products secure. And then there's pillar 5. And pillar 5 is about making best use of all these digital capacities. And an important part of pillar 5 are the digital innovation hubs. They play a special role in the program. And Danielle, if you go to the next slide. Yeah, and I want to explain you the 2 roles that these European digital innovation hubs will play. You should imagine that we will support a network of around 200 digital innovation hubs, which are spread all over Europe. They should cover all the regions in Europe, and there should be one nearby any company or public sector organization. So this local aspect is very important. Every digital innovation hub will have its own specialization, and their first task is to support the digital transformation of the local economy. So their specialization should be based on what they are good at. So in this region, what do we know? What is our expertise? And it should also address the future needs of the local economy. So if it's more an agriculture region, the specialization could be around precision farming, for instance. If manufacturing is more important, the specialization could be around Industry 4.0. So depending on the needs of the region, every digital innovation hub will have its own specialization. And what they do is they will offer their stakeholders, which could be either the industry, but also public administrations. They will offer their stakeholders to be able to test certain technologies before they would need to make really a decision about investing in it further. And this testing phase is really important. And you could imagine, for instance, if a company wants to use robots for improving their production process, that through the Digital Innovation Hub, they will come into contact with a good robot supplier. Hopefully that would, for instance, be also a startup that looks for new customers, and that then that robot will be put into the process of the company for several weeks. The company can really try out how the robot works, and then if he likes it, he can find further investment with the help of the digital innovation hubs. For instance, they could prepare a good plan to go to a bank to get a loan, and then that company can, if he liked the product of the startup, buy one of those robots of the startup or several of the robots. And this will mean that both the user company has an advantage. They now really know what are the return on investment of that robot. But of course, it also means that the startup, they have had a first customer, they can optimize their product further and then also use that as a reference to get other customers in that same segment. And so together, this will really grow the local economy, and it will stimulate innovation, and any type of innovation can come out of this. So every European digital innovation hub will have specialization, and it also means that if a local company would need help which cannot be offered by a local digital innovation hub, that there will then be another digital innovation hub in the network who would have that necessary expertise. And then the local hub will forward that SME to the other hub who could help them. And this will enable transfer of expertise, learning from each other, and that will really create European value chains. So some of these European digital innovation hubs, of course, or I would say, I hope most of all the European digital innovation hubs will also learn how to make use of data, understand how their customers can make use of that to develop artificial intelligence applications, for instance. And well, the role of every European digital innovation hub at least should know the basics about how to deal with data. So that is one role, where they help the local economy with their digital transformation. The second role that the network of European digital innovation hubs will have in Digital Europe program is that they need to diffuse all the digital capacities that are being built up in the program. So in high performance computing, in artificial intelligence, in cybersecurity and trust, in the advanced digital skills, and also in the deployment and best use, that all those digital capacities, that the hubs, that through the hubs, that those will also reach all the local economies everywhere in Europe. Because the hubs, they are spread all over Europe. They know the needs of their local economy, so they would also know when a company would really could really benefit, for instance, from a special testing and experimentation facility. Cecile will talk about later what that exactly is, or how the companies could benefit from the data spaces, and Kimo will talk about that. But what we will have as a mechanism in Digital Europe program is a train the trainer. So the projects that are building up these digital capacities, they are specialists in those areas. They will train all the European Digital Innovation Hub to understand how they can make use of these digital capacities, what they are, what are the APIs, how can you access it. So the specialist will train the Digital Innovation Hubs so that then the Digital Innovation Hubs can then again advise that or integrate that in their offer towards the companies and the public administration in the local situation, so that they will also know about these digital capacities and can really make the best use of it whenever it makes sense. So that are the two roles that I really want to stress. So a Digital Innovation Hub does not only have its own expertise, but also over the years of the program, it will learn more about HPC, AI, cybersecurity and trust. And more integrate that in their offer, and more be able to make sure that the whole European economy can use all these important technologies. So what we will be funding in the Digital Europe program, it will be for capacity building of the hubs, and every European Digital Innovation Hub will get one grant where they describe their own work, and this grant they can use to invest in facilities, but also in people to work in the hub. We will be funding every hub 50% from Digital Europe program, and 50% should come from other sources, which we foresee will be from the member states or the regions, but there can also be private contributions. Member states could use their regional funds to provide for this additional 50%. So we will have 200 grants for every European Digital Innovation Hub if we have 200 hubs. And then their networking will be supported by a special node in the network or a support action. And that one we call the Digital Transformation Accelerator. And it will organize networking events between the hubs, so that, for instance, hubs that are all specialized on data, they can work together, they can share their experience, they can learn from each other. But for instance, also that hubs who are not specialized in data and who would like to learn can learn from the hubs in data. So there would be all kinds of exchanges possible between the 240, whatever would be needed. The Digital Transformation Accelerator will organize those events. They will also organize matchmaking between companies that are in need of a certain support, and the local Digital Innovation Hub cannot offer that support. There could be pitching events where then other hubs can say, yes, but we have this expertise, so please come to us. And that way we would have these collaborations. They will also organize then the train the trainer events, where we will have them as the teachers, the ones who are working in the specialist projects around HPC, AI, and cybersecurity and trust. So this is the whole setup of Digital Europe program, and this is what I wanted to tell you as an introductory statement, so that you really understand that the role of digital innovation hubs is really very important, and that it also changed towards what it has been until now when we were supporting digital innovation hubs in Horizon 2020. So here it's really about capacity building, about to have this regional network, and then about also diffusing all the digital capacities that exist in Europe towards the local economy. Thank you. This was my initial statement.
Okay, Anne-Marie, thank you very much for this presentation. I think I see many connections here with the different instruments, and probably later on we'll have the opportunity to discuss further on this question. Thanks a lot. So now we will go for the next panel, also for the next statement from Kimmo Rossi. It's about the European strategy for data. So Kimmo, I will be managing your slides, and the floor is yours. So please.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for inviting. Thank you for organizing this exciting event. I think it's especially welcome to have colleagues Anne-Marie and Cecile here to talk about digital innovation hubs and the testing, AI testing and experimentation facilities, so that we are not in a data policy or data project silo. So thank you for the colleagues also for joining this session. So I will outline what is known as the European strategy for data, and just to show a little bit of timeline, it's nothing new. It all started in 2014 with the first communication on data economy or towards a data economy, and at the same time a public-private partnership for big data value was set up. That was in about 6 years ago in 2014, and since then we have seen a series of communications and some legislative measures and a lot of technology funding in the Horizon Europe, in the Horizon 2020 program. So about 500 million, €500 million has been invested in collaborative technology project, research and innovation, and deployment, some deployment on data sharing, architectures, analytics, visualization, and so on. So we are now seeing a quite successful and visible public-private partnership coming to a conclusion and starting to deliver results. So it's a very exciting moment, and so it's for everybody's information, it's this public-private partnership that is organizing this event. So BDVA is the association representing the private side of this PPP. So can I have the next slide, please? I think it's important to look back and ask ourselves, what does data economy mean now that we are taking the first practical and operational steps in putting the data economy in place? So now the moment has come when all the preparatory work is bearing fruit and we can move into action. So data economy means new business models, new business opportunities that are built on data. It requires a change of culture. So moving to a culture of not sitting on your data and keeping it to yourself, but to share your data and allow the reuse of your data. Now that's a very fundamental change of culture. It's difficult and it takes time. After 6 years of work, we have seen some signs of changing of the data sharing culture. We already see a very vibrant exchange of public sector data. It's practically all open data. and ecosystems of businesses around that data. We see the value of data sharing. We still have some work to do in sharing of closed data, and by closed data I mean industrial, commercial data and personal data, so which is not open data. We can advertise some carrots, maybe more carrots than stick, of what are the advantages of data sharing. So it provides an opportunity to monetize the data that you are holding. Actually, you can make it a business line to sell and share your data. Also, what is important when we talk about personal data, when we talk about citizens and their personal data online, that it is important to empower those citizens so that they are in full control of what happens with their data. They know what happens with their data, and more importantly, they can follow up the further use of their data, and they can always change their mind about their data and call it back. So the key to make data sharing happen is to make it attractive, to make it easy, and to make it safe. Next slide, please. So in this series of policy measures, communications, the latest one was on the 19th of February this year. We have had long fancy names for our strategies, and the current one is extremely simple. It's just a European strategy for data. And it outlines the policy measures and investments to enable data economy and promote European leadership. So two things are new: practical steps in data economy, and secondly, European leadership. So Europe can actually show the way. If you go back, thank you. So it consists of investment, important investment, so 4 to 6 billion in total, in infrastructure, tools, architectures, governing mechanism, cloud federation. And the investment comes not only from the European Commission budget, but also from the industry and the member states. So that's how we can reach the 4 to 6 billion investment needed. A very important concept is common European data spaces in key areas of industry and society. And then we need some accompanying legislative measures to make sure that we have common rules of what you can do with data, especially now that we are talking about personal data, or that we are talking about proprietary corporate data. We need legislative measures also to facilitate access and reuse of data. Now, next. Anne-Marie already mentioned in her overview of the Digital Europe program the concept of common European data spaces in key sectors. So actually, this 19th of February communications lists 9 key areas where common European data spaces are necessary or somehow prioritary. Here, almost all of them are presented, so health, manufacturing, agriculture, finance, mobility, environment, energy. Some of them represent important industry sectors, others are more public sector or society-oriented, like environment and health. And setting up a data space means more than just technically enabling the sharing or pooling of data. Of course, you need that, but on top of that, you need rules and standards for interoperability, technical and semantic interoperability of the data assets. Otherwise, you can only dream of sharing the data. And you need rules, like you have the highway code for traffic, how you drive your cars on the roads. what you can do and what you cannot do, data governance. And you need powerful enough IT capacity and infrastructure, cloud, storage, processing, and services layer. To all that is also added the layer of personal data platforms, which have been already emerging in member states in various projects and are also supported in European projects. Next one. So Anne-Marie presented Digital Europe program. I don't have to go into detail. I'm just saying that Digital Europe program will support two important elements. Of course, the data spaces, but then also the high-value data sets of public data. I will say a few words later on that. Next slide. Then the other funding program that will support the data strategy is Horizon Europe. So to provide the research and innovation support line. And it will support, most importantly, it will formulate a new partnership now on AI, data, and robotics, which is already quite advanced. And that new partnership will be funded through the Horizon Europe program, and especially enabling the increase of knowledge of methodology, whereas the other program, Digital Europe, will concentrate on deployment and building the capacities and infrastructures. Next one. This is my last slide, just to illustrate one example of the legislative framework, the Open Data Directive, that I mentioned that the open data has become already a very successful example of data sharing, and the concept of high-value data sets that it introduces, the new Open Data Directive introduces, means that for the first time, we are going to be very practical, and we will actually list the public domain data sets that will be so important that they have to be provided in a very easily machine-readable format with APIs accessing, and these data sets must be made open by design and by default. So we are moving in open data from the culture of bulk download of interesting data sets or databases or Excel files. We are moving to pipelines, being able to connect to pipelines of real-time public sector data, for example, from public transport. This is just an example of these accompanying legislative measures that can facilitate data sharing. So thank you very much. This was my introduction.
Okay, Kimmo, thanks a lot. So yes, we have the two first dimensions, the DIH perspective, the data perspective, and now we will move to the testing and experimentation dimension that will be presented by Cécile Louet. So Cécile, we can see your presentation now, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Daniel. Thanks for organizing and inviting us to also present the aspect of the other tool that Anne-Marie mentioned as well, the reference test for experimentation. Sorry, the reference site for experimentation and testing that is planned in the Digital Europe program. And the importance, the key aspect of them is to test in real setting and for testing AI applications. So it's not to test anything, it's really focusing on AI, because when you bring AI into application, into solution, you bring in a certain level of autonomy, and you rather make sure that you carefully test to the performance of those systems before deploying them in the real world. So it's focusing on this kind of testing solutions that have been already tested in the lab, and now they need to be tested in real world setting. And this is what we've seen in the current COVID crisis. There were so many solution that had been tested only in the lab and could not be deployed because they had not been tested in the real environment. So we were missing this critical step before being able to deploy. So as Anne-Marie said, here is the structure of Digital Europe program. I'm not going into the detail now, but I want to detail a bit more the objective 2, which is about artificial intelligence. You have 3 big sections in there. One on the data. The second one is about building a common European libraries of algorithms, and this is building on the current AI on-demand platform. The goal is to have a central repository where we have all the resources about algorithm and solution and modules and software and robotics algorithm as well, that the whole community can reuse, and rather than reinventing all the time new things. And the third one is about these reference testing and experimentation facilities of AI in real-world setting. I will describe a bit more the content of that. So the goal is to really build on existing facilities. So this is a new concept to bring some existing facilities in member state and bring them at European level, so they become a resource offered to all the European stakeholders. But it's quite a centralized resource because it needs intensive testing, intensive investment to have critical mass and be able to do this testing. And this also makes economies of scale. Instead of having to do small scale testing A, B, and C, we have centralized large scale testing so that once tested there, they could be deployed everywhere. So this is the concept. There are 2 different types of testing experimentation facility. One is about testing hardware for AI, so the chips for AI, optimized for AI. So there will be one testing experimentation facility dedicated to that. And the other one are more application centric. So the goal is really to have on-site in a real environment or very close to real environment testing experimentation facility where you test AI-based solution. And also the beauty of having physical real-world environment is that you can also bring hardware, robotics, IoT, and so on in the real situation, understand what are the limitations, understand what is the added value, better tune the solution to the user needs. So this is really about that. So we have for the moment been discussing with member states to prioritize the areas to focus on. There will be one on healthcare, one on agri-food, manufacturing, and smart cities, smart mobility would be one together, the 2 of them together. And in all of them also the Green Deal and environmental aspect have been considered as very important. So instead of having one dedicated to that, they will be also addressed in all of them. So just to summarize and to visualize how the structure of the Digital Europe program looks like. So you have the data on the top. So the data spaces, so being every type of data, personal, public, health data, industrial data. Then you have in blue this layer of software modules, so the AI on-demand platform with any type of tools you could have, and then the large-scale testing and experimentation facilities focusing on some application sectors. And here, what I wanted to show is that you don't necessarily have a single physical facility. They could be a certain number, but a small number. We will not have 25 testing facilities in agriculture, 25 in smart city. We need to concentrate and make economies of scale to have these large scale testing. And then the next layer is the digital innovation. So we expect a lot of interaction between the 2, and I will a bit explain how we see the interaction and how each of them can benefit from the interaction with the other. So just to repeat here the definition of these reference testing experimentation facilities. So it's a technology infrastructure that has specific expertise and experience of testing mature technology, so having been tested already in the lab, and they will be now tested in a a given sector under real or close to real conditions, such as a smart hospital, where you would have the smart hospital open for provider of technology to come and test their products, or a lab which has already tested in their own facility, in their technical lab, then bring them now to the real end user labs. And the smart city and experimental farm corridor for connected and automated driving could be examples as well. So just a bit more about the concept. There will be a limited number per sector, since we need to do big investment. So this is the idea of economy of scale again, and these will become common resource available to all European stakeholders to validate new AI-based solutions. So it's not again to validate anything, it's focusing on AI-based solution. And the goal is to validate the different aspects, not only the technical aspect to make sure they are robust, they meet the technical requirement, but also the legal aspect and the socio-economic aspect to make sure that they're in line with the regulation, or there is a need of adaptation. So these are the different aspects. And the result will be available throughout Europe, either directly, but we expect a lot of help with the Digital Innovation Hub to bring the result from these common resources and distribute them locally to their local economies. Here is the legal basis of the Digital Europe program, mentioning this need to co-invest with the member states. So it will be 50% funded by the Commission, but the additional 50% should be funded by other sources, including member states and regional funds, for instance. And here are the key elements. So it's about AI, it's about latest AI technologies, and focusing on important sectors, and the link to the network of Digital Innovation Hub is also in the regulation of the Digital Europe program. So a bit more again about the concept. So we will not have a one-size-fits-all. They must be adapted to the sector, and they should optimize the efficiency and the impact. So focus on application, on use case, which needs really this large-scale testing. So what is important when we decide the number and localization of the testing facilities? So economies of scales, it means that we will not have hundreds of those, a small number of them, but also take into account that they should be available to many stakeholders. So there should be a sufficient number as well. And there are different criteria to be used depending on the application sector. In agriculture, you need to have a representative regional distribution. If you want to test different crops in different climates, they should be accessible as well. In healthcare, you have to have access to health data, HPC for the processing locally, and the different maybe the different social security system need to be tested. So which might require TEF in different countries. The regulatory environment could also be a factor to take into account. This is just again the quotes from the different publication we had to give the amount of investment we plan. So we plan big investment and co-investment with member states, and encouraging the use of cohesion policy investment. Now I want to clarify a little bit the difference between digital innovation hubs and testing and experimentation facilities in terms of what is their focus. So you know that in the digital innovation hubs, you have different actors. So this is an ecosystem bringing academia, entrepreneur, incubator, industry, investors, user communities, and government locally. So this is this ecosystem. So locally, they build on their local stakeholders. Also, you have this network. They will develop networks of digital innovation hub in Europe. So this is the distributed aspect, while you would have a central some central tools such as the AI on demand platform is a central common tool to be used by all these different digital innovation hubs. And the same will apply to the testing and experimentation facilities. Again, you have the distributed aspect of digital innovation hub, but the testing and experimentation facilities are centralized common resource to be shared and to be used by everybody. So with this strategy, we have a toolbox with some common and central tools, such as the on-demand platform and the testing and experimentation facilities, together with the network of digital innovation hubs, which will be there to bring as a distribution channel for AI to empower all the local companies and the local users. So we also expect from the digital innovation hubs to help the local developers to bring them to the testing and experimentation facilities if they need such level of dense, intense testing of their algorithm before being able to deploy them. So this is the two-way channel we expect. Now, the link between the testing and experimentation facilities and the data space, for sure the tests will exploit, test, and validate the data coming from this data space to test the AI-powered solution. So that's one way, this kind of direction. But on the other hand, they will provide user feedback to the data space to explain what works, what are the weaknesses and the strengths, and maybe to continue enriching them. So there will be some synchronization. There is a lot of, it's very important to have this synchrony and interaction, constructive interaction between both. And finally, the tests will also collect some data contributing to the data space. So that's it for my side. Thank you.
Okay, Cecile, thanks a lot for the presentation. I see some questions already from the audience. Well, we will address those questions during the panel discussion later on. Okay. So now we will give the floor to Reinhardt from EU Robotics, who will explain or we will share with us their learning and experience from some ongoing projects, for instance, DIHs and Roden, which are based on the network of DIH, and well, they already have some experience on that. So Reinhardt, we give you the control now. We cannot hear you. Maybe you are in mute. Okay.
Okay, now, sorry,
No.
I couldn't unmute myself somehow. Okay, thanks a lot. So
can you put your slides in presentation mode, if
yes,
possible, please?
What I'm going to do. Okay, let me see whether it already works. Seems to be slow. So maybe I stop sharing the screen and try again. Hold on. So 1 second. Presentation mode. Okay, and now I start sharing my screen. So I hope it works.
Now it works. We can see the panel. You can close the panel with the red arrow, and it'll be better.
Yes, I think so.
Okay,
otherwise,
much better now.
Easier. Okay, great. So welcome everyone from my side. I would like to give a short overview on how this is seen from one particular area from the robotics field. I wouldn't say it's a sector, because this is a technology area and not just one of the verticals. So first of all, we tried to identify how the landscape would look like at the moment. And at the moment, we see that we have the thousands and millions of individual industries on the bottom layer. We have on top of this regional layer with different competence centers, and they are starting now to build regional hubs, and they are somehow connected via the European level in form of innovation actions on particular fields. I will come to this in a minute. And here on the top layer, we have the European landscape of innovation hubs, but also supporting CSAs and some of the projects where I'm involved in. And one is Roden, which deals with innovation actions in the area of robotics on particular sectors. And we have DNET.eu, which is a project which aims at connecting all the DIHs and networks on a pan-European level, independent of the sector, the vertical, or the technology. In the middle, we have here the member states, which in the old setting in Horizon 2020 do not play a major role, but the role of the member states in Horizon Europe will be much, much stronger as we are moving to the European digital innovation hubs, which is a slightly different concept. When you try to see this here also in terms of numbers, you have all the SMEs and mid-caps, or slightly bigger, how it is called in some of the contexts. And this is our ultimate target group. What we want to reach is their way on interacting with other SMEs. We want to create ecosystems on this level. And to support this, we have this hierarchy, this pyramid on top of this, with the digital innovation hubs, with the competence centers, which are, let's say, more on the technology side focused and less dealing with business models and such alike. Technology park, and here also what Cecil and others mentioned, testing facilities, certification instances, and so on, would be located. They need to be combined in regional networks, because normally you have to deal with a relatively local environment, but still connect on a higher level on the European side. We also have the universities, the RTOs, we have European established structures like the network of the European Enterprise Network here with all the partners, and EIT and KIC nodes. And we have the things which are primarily based on European funding, which is innovation actions on the different sectors, but we also have CSAs, we have the public-private partnerships now and the upcoming partnerships from 2021 on. And we have here pan-European networks where we try to combine everything. And this big challenge is done in various ways. So, for example, if you look at the current landscape, how the funding is done, we have robotics, we have data, we have cybersecurity, we have photonics. In these areas, we not only have public-private partnerships, but we also have projects supporting this. And Daniel Alonso, the host of this webinar, is the coordinator of one of the soon to be started projects in the data field. From our perspective, from robotics, we have it like this. We have our vector, our sectors here, the verticals. We have healthcare, we have agri-food, we have maintenance inspection, and we have agile production. And we have a set of 5 projects supporting these areas. And these projects are network projects in itself. So these projects deal with the individual DIHs in the respective areas. And we as Rodin try to share best practice among all those individual innovation actions. On the other hand, we have an uplink, so to say, to the DNET project, which is the umbrella project for all the things, and where we also hope to get the data and other areas engaged with, so that we have a real network of networks, which on the one hand makes it a bit more complex. On the other hand, it's the only way to structure this large variety of initiatives and stakeholders here. So when you look into the application areas, it's clear we have some goals. And one of the goals is, of course, the stimulation of innovation. And here also we look into the societal relevance. So both aspects are covered by all of the areas, and the network of the DIHs should support it and also establish, especially SMEs, to gain more from the things that are available. This can be technology, this can be business models, this can be other things. And one of the big values is just exchange of best practice and learn also from the failures of the others here. And I don't want to go into the details. I want to keep my presentation short, but let me just pick out another example, which is not in one of our core application areas, but it's a very good example to see how this all links to data, because it's here in this webinar all about data. So we have many technologies and requirements, and data is essential to glue all the things together, to embed the physical system, for example, such as a robot, in the overall workflows. And here the DIHs can play a major role to solve the technical problems, but also the integration problems. And in addition to this, also look into business models, look into financing, and so on. So the benefit of this network layer is, in addition, also to contribute to standardization or certification, like Cecile mentioned, and of course, the sharing of best practice. So in this diagram, I can present just a short overview what could be done in the future with this network. And of course, if you are talking about certification or testing, then not each physical infrastructure will provide all the technology needed for testing or certifying a particular product, and therefore also this networking aspect becomes more and more relevant here. So I would like to show the project of the DNET, how this acts. On the one hand, we have a leverage on the project, what we are aiming at. So past and present projects should be taken as good examples, hopefully, and they should be also brought to the next level. So we have, as said by Cecile, many projects which deal with very well developed technology, but only on a prototypical stage. So to bring this to the market, there are additional steps needed. And here the DIHs can play a major role to take up the very good research results, to take the prototypes, make them more robust, creating business models around them, and finally showcasing it to the world so that it can be taken up by the market. And this toolbox of instruments is something we are looking at. So what we want to do is to create a sustainable network of DIHs across Europe and boost their collaboration, but also to look into what kind of services are already out there in the different DIHs, so that this can be also picked up by others. And this is something which is partly also reflected in the EU-wide DIH catalog, which is also something we look into it, especially our partners from Technalia and the DNET project. And as said before, cross-sectorial dissemination and awareness raising is essential. I would also like to take the opportunity to pre-announce a virtual DIH event, which will take place 9-10 November, most likely. It was foreseen originally to be held physically in Luxembourg, but more on this will come later and we will circulate the information. If you want to learn a bit more about Rodin and DNET, just have a look at our web pages, and we are very open to integrate in the overall landscape, and especially via DNET, we are looking for this very broad side, also outside the robotics area, to connect all the different stakeholders in DIHs. Thank you very much.
Okay, Reinhardt, thank you very much. Very interesting, your experience and your view about the different connection between networks, DIH, and projects. So now we will give the floor to Daniel Saez from ITI, who will explain a little bit about the iSpaces BDVA and his view, and he's also involved in the new project you have for data that we will start in September. So Danny, we can hear you perfect on your presentation, so go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. I will present briefly in this project, EU Hubs for Data as the Federation of Big Data Innovation Hubs, and how this project is related with all the ecosystem around data, all the initiatives in data, the existing initiative, and also the future initiatives around data. We can find the origin of this project in the data innovation spaces, or also known as iSpaces, identified by BDVA and defined by BDVA as key instruments to foster data-driven innovation, because they are environments, as my colleague Daniel said at the beginning, environments for data-driven innovation and experimentation, not only addressing technical aspects, but also non-technical aspects like legal, societal, or social skills, business aspects related to data-driven innovation. And they also rely on existing national and also European initiatives, and are connected to all these initiatives in order to complement each other and increase the impact of the activities of the iSpaces, and need a ecosystem of companies around them, and not only small and medium companies to provide services to them, but also large companies in order to ensure access to economic opportunities, leverage the business, and so on. In summary, innovation spaces are incubators and accelerators of data-driven innovation, and that's the reason, because they are the origin of this EU Hubs for Data project, the Federation of Big Data Digital Innovation Hubs, which objective is to contribute to create this European common data space that has been mentioned before, by creating a global catalog, but global catalog of services around data, but deploying these services at local level through the DIHs that are members of the federation. In that way, SMEs and startups will access this global catalog of data sources and federated data-driven services, and also the latest development of data analytics and advanced assets and big data solutions and innovations in this global catalog by means of sharing experiences between DIHs. So it will be the European reference on innovation and experimentation on big data. The process to build the project and the federation will follow this sequence. The project starts the 1st of September in this year. We will have, or we have now, an initial ecosystem composed by 12 DIHs and iSpaces from BDVA. We will enlarge this ecosystem to 30 DIHs at the end of the project by including new ones along the project through open calls. We will define jointly with all these DIHs a global catalog of services for data sources and data sets and so on. And we will make this catalog accessible at local level, as I said before, through the DIHs. For the demand side, we will launch 3 open calls for including 42 third parties, SMEs and startups, which will develop an experiment using the support of at least two of the DIHs in the network, and we will build a community with all the existing initiatives or elements in the ecosystem of big data or data-driven innovation. As I said, I will explain just in a few minutes, in order to build a sustainable model that can make this federation continue after the project. In this community building process, we will connect with all the existing initiatives like data incubators, data platforms coming from ICT 13 topic or others, the SME networks in Europe, AI4U, and also the network of excellence in AI and other AI initiatives in Europe, other European projects, for example, Lighthouse projects, other DIH networks, skills and training providers, and also open data, important thing as Kimo mentioned before. This is the consortium of the project. We have highlighted the initial DIHs, which are the 12 as I mentioned before. And we also have the collaboration and the participation of important players in Europe, like Big Data Value Association, IDSA, the European Digital SME Alliance, KU Leuven, IDC, Zabala and Carsa, and TNO and King's College of London, in order to cover all the initiatives and all the needs of the project regarding certification and also data governance, as I will explain in the discussion. The project is combining the regional and also the European view. It all starts at the DIH level, at regional level. The DIHs provides their individual offers to the European level, and the individual offers of the DIHs combined together with other European projects, other data platforms, data sources, other models coming from other AI initiatives, compose this European federated catalog, and that is the base catalog that is provided to all the European companies, but is deployed again at regional level by the DIH. So we are going up and going down to provide the services at regional level, and this is this connects with the Cecile explanation about how the DIH can be the channels to distribute or to increase the impact of the activities at European level, to increase these activities at regional level. We have identified a set of services just to show you the blocks where the services are established. We will refine these services in the project, in the first steps of the project, but we are talking about ecosystem building services, technology provision services, business, skills and maturity assessment, and also very important, the data value chain services, talking about data sharing, decision making, data processing and analysis, data governance, and so on, which is very important for us. Just an example about what digital innovation hub in big data is, taking the ITI example. We are a competence center, a research and technology organization in the Valencia region, and we are the one-stop shop in the region to foster data-driven and artificial intelligence-based innovation. We are based on three main pillars. We provide infrastructure, we have data and agreements with data owners, and we have algorithms to provide services to the companies at our regional level. So we are providing a common infrastructure that facilitates a safe and reliable environment for the development of projects that require big data, artificial intelligence, and high performance computing, very aligned with the Digital Europe program. This is an example of our expertise and key services that you can see in the slides later. And just to finalize and give a transition to the discussion panel, how EU has for data is related to this new initiative that Cecile, Kimo, and Anne-Marie were presented before. I think the Big Data Innovation Hub are very closely connected to all these initiatives with European Digital Innovation Hubs, European data spaces, and testing and experimentation facilities, and we can make the link to share these global initiatives to the regional level. So we can make a very good connection, and we will be connected, providing information to bring the regional characteristics and needs of the small companies to European level, and also to transfer the guidelines, best practices, and access to those infrastructures to the local companies. So that's all. Thank you very much, and I will be at your disposal for commenting in the discussion panel.
Okay, Danny, thank you very much for the explanation. And with this statement, we end the initial presentation from the speakers, and now we will start the panel discussion. So first of all, again, I remember that all the material, the presentation and the recording will be available in the BDVA webpage, and also in the page of the Big Data Value PPP. So stay tuned, because all the material will be available very soon. And now we will start the panel discussion. I have prepared several questions for the speakers, but I see that there are also already many questions from the audience. So if you don't mind, I will start with a question from the audience, and my first and especially in the case of Cecile, the testing and experimentation facilities, there are several questions. So let me ask you, Cecile, because people are interested in it, if there is a specific criteria for selecting the TEF, and we will be the role of member states in selecting those TEF, and if you have, you could provide more information about these criteria.
Good, thanks. So regarding criteria, we are still in discussion. It will be part of the core text that we will refine, and we are still in discussion also with stakeholders. There will be a second. We already had a first round of workshops in January. They are published on our website. There will be a second round of them to refine the concept, see where to focus to maximize the impact. And based on that, then the selection criteria will be derived to identify where the impact will be maximized, where there are needs of such testing facilities, and so on and so on. What can we build already? So these are things that are discussed now. Regarding the member states, so we don't have the same process as for the digital innovation hubs. So we ask them to co-fund, but we do not ask them to pre-select. So the call will be like a normal call, where then the participant will have to find co-funding for the remaining 50% using member state funding. It can be in kind or in cash funding, also building on the assets which already exist, which is also an in-kind contribution, provided that these are costs incurred during the running of the project. So this is the way we see it. But member states, I mean, they can mobilize, of course, their constituencies to participate, but they do not have a role in selecting the TEFs, the testing experimentation facilities themselves.
Okay, thank you. Yes, basically they for instance, they are asking, for instance, how a smart hospital or smart city could be potential candidate for a TEF funded. I don't know if you can give some details on that. Just an example.
Yeah, we see that there is a need to access the real facility, so the real environment, so such as an experimental farm. But there is at the same time a need to access to the technology, so to an environment to test the technology. So the two of them have to be present, so that on that we can build a testing experimentation facilities that must then be brought to the European level, so that any European actor can come and use it. So at the moment, I don't think there is such, at least it's not widely existing, that we have such facilities which could serve the European community at large. So we have to scale them up. And but we need to have those key elements, which is expertise in the application domains and expertise in the technology domain, so that the TEF themselves, they will offer the service. So people come to test a technology, so they have to have a framework to do the testing. So how do you access the testing? What is going to be used? Which use cases will be used? So this must be part of the proposal, to have a way to test, a methodology and a plan to interact with the different interlocutors, being the people coming to test, being the data provider, the interaction with the data space initiatives, and also with the digital innovation hub. And there are two aspects which are discussed for the moment, to have as well a physical as well as a virtual part of the testing experimentation facility, so that part of them you must come and test. So if you have robots, you would have to come and test it in the environment, but vice versa. You could also have parts of the testing facility that could be accessed remotely. So you have a product that could be tested, you could upload it somewhere, they could be tested in the facility by the real end users, and you could have feedback. So these are different models that are considered at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I think this answered very well the first question. So the next question, Kimo, is for you, because people in the audience are wondering if there are any reference studies or analysis that can be useful to decide which vertical sectors and horizontal technologies will have the widest impact for data sharing and monetization. Maybe they are also asking about the sectors that have been selected for the European Common Data Spaces.
Yes, so indeed, some sectors have been identified in the communication that listed these 9 data spaces, common European data spaces. It's not an exhaustive list. It does not mean that these are the only ones that need to be put in place, but it's probably those that have the most urgency and pressure. If we take healthcare, for example, we all understand that the health threats that we are facing are not limited to one particular country. That's one thing. And the second thing is that when the confinement is over, people are moving across countries, and that they need care, access to care and medicines wherever they are, not necessarily in their home country. So all this puts a pressure on the healthcare to provide data spaces that give access to this kind of facilities and services, and are supportive of this kind of new approach to healthcare. So why are these sectors that are mentioned, why are they there? It's because they have been most often quoted as being in need of solutions, and also because they are the most perhaps technically advanced or mature to take this step, because the Digital Europe program is not a research and innovation program. It's a deployment program. It is a program to operate systems, facilities, to operate them, and for some useful purpose. And that requires a certain level of maturity to start with. The same as Cecile was mentioning for this testing and experimentation facilities, it's for mature technologies to test them in real environment. New verticals will certainly emerge, and there are already like signs of data spaces being set up in areas other than those 9 mentioned in the communication. But for a deployment program to be useful, it has to be very concrete and practical. So it means that there are certain top-down elements, so that we are saying that these 9 sectors are important, please provide solutions. Then somebody will say, yes, but I also claim that smart cities are also important. We want to create a data space for smart cities. Fine, we can do that as well. So that's why we have started with this kind of top-down approach, because of the pressure that was felt in those particular sectors.
Okay, Kimo, thanks a lot. Again, very clarifying about the sectors and how you have designed the program. So let me have a first round of questions from my side regarding the alignment of this new instrument that you have presented we passed an existing one and passed an existing instrument. And in this case, my question is for Anne-Marie regarding the connection, because you know that there is also already a catalog of DIH. There are around 300 DIH recognized by the European Commission in this catalog. So my question is, with new catalog of European DIH, are you planning to have both catalogs coexisting? The new one is going to replace the previous one. Some European DIHs will be the same as the previous one, but not all of them. So how are you planning to combine both catalogs? And also about the network of DIH. The new network of the European DIH, we will have some connection with the existing network of DIH, and also the new ones that are starting in September, as my colleague mentioned before. So.
Well, thank you, Daniel, for this question. I think it's a very good question, and everybody is also wants to know how this all will work in the future. I think there's two levels of answers. So first of all the digital innovation hubs that are now in the catalog or that are part of our innovation actions and that are doing this work, they would need to also work with their member states to try to get designated to become a European Digital Innovation Hub. Because the advantage of being a European Digital Innovation Hub is that you will really get resources to strengthen the capacity of your digital innovation hub. You will become a part of this network, and you are then at the same time recognized by your region, by your country, and by Europe to play this important role in the digital transformation. So for everybody who is involved now and who would like to become a European Digital Innovation Hub, my first advice is that you have to contact your national authorities who will be pre-selecting the digital innovation hubs, and you should be sure that they also know about you, they understand what you are doing, and that you will be able to apply to the national process. But of course, you know, there will be only I don't know, I say around 200 European Digital Innovation Hubs. So they will get this label. If you are a Digital Innovation Hub supported by a Digital Europe program, you get the label European Digital Innovation Hub. And one thing that we foresee to do is, once we have those, that in the current catalog, we will also have then the label European Digital Innovation Hub, and that we can show on the map what are the European Digital Innovation Hubs. And of course, there's still a place on the map also for other digital innovation hubs. And this support activity that I was talking about, the Digital Transformation Accelerator, should also, when they organize events, these events are also open for other digital innovation hubs. It's the only thing is, their travel cost will not be supported by Digital Europe program. But if they can, at their own cost, participate to these meetings, the Digital Transformation Accelerator should also allow them to participate to the meetings. And what I also hope that will happen is that locally, the European Digital Innovation Hub will also look around what are the Digital Innovation Hub that are existing in my area, and will also find a way to work locally with these other digital innovation hubs so that they can also benefit from this European network. So basically they will remain to coexist. We will foresee possibilities for working together in Digital Europe program, but there will be no funding for the not European Digital Innovation Hubs. And what I should also mention is that, for instance, in Horizon Europe, we would also foresee to continue working with projects like we have now, for instance, on your iSpaces or on robotics or on manufacturing. We would like to continue supporting these projects. And in those projects, we will again use this mechanism of cascading funds and also really support SMEs who want to work with the digital innovation hubs. And for the Horizon Europe projects, it's not necessary that it are European digital innovation hubs providing this support. It can also be other digital innovation hubs or competence centers or other organizations that can provide this support to the SMEs. And so that is also another source of funding that we still foresee.
Okay, thank you very much. So my next question is for both from Reinhardt and Danny. So maybe you can elaborate further about the connection that you will see with your projects, with those new instruments that the Commission is expecting for the new program, the European DIH, data spaces, TEF. So Reinhardt, maybe you could provide some elements how you see those connections. Yes.
Okay, so I think it's very important to create a real sustainable network which is not separating the European digital innovation hubs and the Horizon 2021s. I think the big advantage we have at the moment that we have already started creating these pan-European networks, and the stakeholder communities from different areas come together, they get known to each other, and I think this we need to bring into the upcoming landscape of European digital innovation hubs. Even though they are defined or proposed by the member states, they will be embedded in existing ecosystems. So this means the likelihood that some of these hubs are already embedded in a network, for example, in robotics area specialized on healthcare or agri-food sector, is very high. So I really do hope that this is just an additional leverage, and maybe some new services or some new connections will come out of this. And especially if it's done correctly, then the link on the local or regional basis to the chambers of commerces, to other ecosystems on a local basis, rather than the, let's say, more research side. This would be something which brings really the worlds together, and hopefully also makes it possible to have a faster way to the market when you have already good research projects coming up with prototypes and results.
Okay, thank you, Reinhardt. And Danny, how do you see the new project DIHs for data in aligned with these new tools, new instruments, but also with the past ones?
Mm-hmm. Okay, DIHs for data, of course, will be very related to this transition between DIH and European DIH. In fact, most of or some of the DIHs already involved in the project will be part or will be the European DIH in their regions, so they will become the European DIH if they are selected by the European Commission and of course by the member state. So the connection is very logical. We in the project we have the provision to work with this evolution and this transition to these new instruments, and that's regarding European DIHs. If some of the DIHs involved in the DIHs for data cannot be part of a European DIH or cannot be the European DIH, they will be connected with the European DIH in their region. So in following the reasoning of Anne-Marie, there will be a connection, because the fact is that all the IA spaces we have in the project have the real connections with the companies. They are providing services, they are providing all the data space. So the reality and the trust for the companies is provided by these IA spaces at this moment. So they will play an important role for sure. With the testing and experimentation facilities, the connection is as a channel, as Cecile mentioned before. I see the local connection at working distance that a DIH is providing to the local ecosystem as an important thing to connect the local companies with and support the local companies to access these testing and experimentation facilities, to prepare these companies to launch the experiments in these testing and experimentation facilities. I think this is a good role of the DIHs, of our DIHs in these testing and experimentation facilities in connection with them. And regarding the European Common Data Spaces, well, we can contribute with our data. In the project we are providing, or we are building a framework of data services, a global catalog of data sets, data services, and the way these data services and data sets can interoperate and can be interoperable, how we can make the data governance and so on. So this is very in line with the European Common Data Space. We need to see which sectors we are addressing and to which European Common Data Spaces we can contribute to provide this data to link with them, but the connection will be assured.
Okay, thank you, Dani. So this answer is aligned with my next question for Kimmo, because Kimmo, you mentioned that, well, in the draft in the strategy for data in Europe, it says that European Common Data Spaces will include data sharing tools and platforms, data governance framework, availability, interoperability, quality of data, reuse of data, etc. And many of these aspects have been developed by many of the projects under the umbrella of the Big Data Value PPP. So my question is, will those new data spaces leverage on past and present projects of the PPP? And if so, in which way those projects could contribute to the new European Common Data Spaces?
Yes, Daniel, that's a very dangerous question. I could talk for half a day about how the project can and will contribute, or have already contributed, or how they are expected to contribute. I try to be brief. Indeed, this data spaces is not something we are starting from scratch. It's building on a rich variety of legacy that we already have in place, or projects that are about to start. Maybe I start with these projects that some of you may remember, and some of you may have been involved in this cross-border, cross-sectoral data value chains. I think it was ICT 14 a couple of years ago, 4, 5, 6 years ago. And they are similar to iSpaces, actually. In some way, they started, it was the first attempt to start the culture of data sharing. So that's why I mentioned them here. And they provided valuable change in thinking. Then we have the lighthouse projects, which by definition are they are large projects that are concentrated on one particular industry sector, and they are deploying more or less mature technologies to initiate a transition of that sector to a data-driven business model, to initiate a transition. And being large and sectoral means that they have certain resemblance to the testing and experimentation facilities that Cecile was presenting. So we have this ecosystem of lighthouse projects in areas such as manufacturing, transport, energy, healthcare, bioeconomy, and finance. So it's almost all the sectors of the data spaces. Then we go to a bit more maybe directly relevant contribution. We have the projects that were addressing privacy-preserving technologies. Privacy-preserving technologies are the key enabling technology for any data sharing of closed data. So any data which is not open data, you need privacy-preserving technologies. You need to be ensured that you can safely share your data and you know exactly who is going to use your data and under what conditions you conclude a contract with them. So we have this project SODA special, My Health, My Data, from the first generation ICT 18, and then we have the project, the newer generation of privacy preserving technology from Mosaic, Crown, Musketeer, and SafeDeed. Also looking at this, how to do things safely and securely and in compliance. Then, of course, we have the big splash of this year, the 9 projects. Well, it happens to be by coincidence, exactly 9 projects were funded, not exactly coinciding with the 9 areas of data spaces, but 9 projects putting in place data sharing platforms. So data platforms, platforms for data sharing in large scale, so in real scale, rather than just experimenting. So that was the next step, to go a bit up to scale and more practical, illustrating the challenges of sharing closed data, sharing closed industrial or personal data. So they are actually, these data platforms project that have started this year, they are actually the direct precursors of certain data spaces. I call them precursors. So then, of course, we have these projects that are to come, and of course, the portfolio of the data digital innovation hubs that have been evaluated, have been selected, but and contracts, grant agreements have been signed, but the projects have not started yet. And I mention only your project, EU Hubs for Data, because you are brave enough to go public already before your project even started. So as Daniel, the other Daniel, showed in his presentation, EU Hubs for Data is more than just a hub of hubs. It is a hub for many different things. And we have great expectations for this project, EU Hubs for Data, not only as a hub of digital innovation hubs, but contributing to the creation of the European data spaces. And that actually happens to be one of your contractual objectives of your project that you have formulated yourself. And I'm very happy about that. Add value to the ecosystem of existing initiatives in Europe, not only digital innovation hubs, but existing other initiatives in Europe. So very much I expect from EU Hubs for Data to take the place also. So not only acting in the sphere of digital innovation hubs, which is very important, but also looking more broadly, a coordinating role for the partnership landscape in general, because data needs to partner with so many areas, so many sectors, so many technology areas, that we need a large project with a broad vision to look after that. That will, in a certain way, also take the role of the CSA project BDVE once BDVE expires at the end of this year. Okay, I hope this was not too long. No, but this is not an exhaustive list of projects, but maybe the most important ones, the most relevant ones.
Yeah, it was perfectly clear, Kimo, considering that we have under the umbrella of the PPP now more than 50 projects, so it was clear. And I have to say that from ITI, iSpaces, and BDVA, we are very excited about the new project, and we are eager to start working on that. Thanks a lot. So we have, well, TEF. We have many questions for TEF in the chat. So my next question is again for you, Cecile, because people are really interested in these testing and experimentation facilities. And maybe a difficult question, a tough question is if you can say something about the sustainability of those testing and experimentation facilities. You have planned, well, some business plan, sustainability plan, or is it very early now to talk about that? I don't know if you have an answer for that.
Yeah. I think it's something which will take a bit of time, because, as I said, it's a new concept. So first, they will need to be supported for some time before finding a way to have them sustainable. So first we have to establish them, to make them running, and find a way to make them sustainable. So at the beginning, I don't expect them to be self-sustainable. It will take some time, and maybe each sector will have a different time frame. We will put that in the thinking. That's the goal. But since it's a service which will be given to all European stakeholders, you cannot expect from day one to have the current owner of a testing facility to give for free everything. So we need to gradually bring that into the model. And once they will acquire a good reputation and that everybody will want to use it, and maybe bigger company could afford to pay some fees to access it, that could be a model. So we have to gradually develop these different possibilities for sustainability. But I think from the beginning we should first establish them, make them good quality, have a good reputation, so that people would see the added value and would really need them, and then we will embed the self-sustainability.
Thank you, Cecile. When you mention existing facilities and maybe that the new TF will rely in some of them, people are asking what exactly those existing facilities are, if you can give some examples about that.
Yeah, so that's a bit delicate to point at some location, but in the workshop we organized in January, so some stakeholder came to explain what they were doing already in the sector of manufacturing. We had some presentation, and we could see that there's similar activity already in some countries. So you can go back in this presentation. In also a smart city, they have, you can also see what has been done in previous project. There were these large-scale pilot in IoT, for instance. Some of the facilities developed there could be the embryo to build testing experimentation facilities. So when you think about also on agriculture, they are already, for instance, in the current project we have also large-scale pilot on farming, smart farming. We have also digital innovation hubs, networks of digital innovation hubs in agriculture for robotics or for digital technologies in general. So there you can see already some activities and some of the stakeholders that could serve as a basis or embryo to build on. But it's not limited to our initiative. There are also national initiatives. For instance, we learned that in Germany, they are funding already something very similar. So they have a number of facilities which are used for testing for specific areas in agriculture. So this could also be some facilities that could be candidates to build on. But again, it would be on the consortium to develop these, to identify which are the main stakeholders and on which we can build a solid foundation.
Okay, thank you. Great. So my next, this is a question from my side, from Anne-Marie, because, well, we are very much involved in data, and in the Digital Euro program, it focuses on AI, cybersecurity, and HPC. But we think that data could be considered as the common denominator for these three technologies. So my question is, you also mentioned it before, but if you could elaborate further on that, what is the role or the complementarity that you see for data-driven DIH in this Digital Euro program, the European DIH that will be funded, could be the connection with Digital Innovation Hubs based on data-driven Digital Innovation Hub?
Yes. Well, indeed, data is, of course, very important, both for high performance computing, for AI, probably also for cybersecurity. So what you say is completely right. We really need also digital innovation hubs that are specialized in data. And sometimes there's the confusion that the people think that because of Digital Europe program, every digital innovation hub should be specialized on either AI, HPC, or cybersecurity. But that is not true. The role of the Digital Innovation Hub is also to be able to integrate different technologies, because companies, they will never need only data, or they will not need only AI or only HPC. They have other needs. They would need to combine different technologies. So also the Digital Innovation Hub, even though it can have more knowledge about one of these technologies, they should also be able to advise on the integration of other technologies. But in the case of data, it's very clear that you cannot have AI without data. So it's so much linked that you know, it's certainly a very important technology. But the specialization of the hubs, it can be what the hub itself chooses it to be. As I said, it should build on strengths that are available locally. So if that is data, that can of course be a topic, but then it should be put to the use of the local economy and respond to the needs of the local economy. So if healthcare would be very important, indeed it could be data for healthcare, or if agriculture would be very important, data for agriculture. But I think always the hub would also need to have other types of knowledge, for instance, also cybersecurity. So if you make your products more digital, how can you make sure that it will not be hacked and everything? So you would always need cybersecurity. If you have data, you probably want to use it for AI. You would need to calculate. You would use it for simulations, for learning. For that, you need also then the supercomputers. So I think what you said, Danielle, is right. Data will be an integral part. There will be some hubs that will be more special, that will know more about data, so they can certainly have that specialization. But also other hubs would need to learn, let's say, would need to have basic skills around making use of data.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne-Marie. So going on with this discussion about data, Reinhardt, my next question is for you, because how you see the role of data in your projects, in your network of DIH based on robotics, which is the role that data could play also together with the robotics environment, and also maybe the connection, you already explained about that, but the connection of your DIH with the IA spaces and so on.
I think we have a completely different type of data which we are talking about here. One is the technical data, for example, also thinking in the future, creating data exchange between robots, allowing for a more cloud robotic solution and things like this. This is an ongoing trend, and I'm pretty sure that we will see these kind of data. But at the moment, I have the impression that there is a lot of unstructured data, and here we could just benefit from the experience of the data communities to get more structure in all this data, to get also a kind of data economy around this. And this would be, so to say, the technical side. On the next levels, there is also a lot of data needed for environment monitoring, environment manipulation. So environmental data are already now absolutely important for outdoor agricultural robots, as one example. All the big tractors also have very good models of their fields which they are working on. So here things go hand in hand. And on the other hand, the robotics side could provide these data, which are then shared by all the sensing, by all the information which is collected when a robot moves in a real environment rather than a simulated one. And of course, on the higher level, when you talk about networks, data exchange, here all the learnings on the business side are also absolutely relevant for the robotics area, but also here there would be very well suited for an exchange of knowledge in this area.
Okay, thank you, Reinhardt. And now I will follow with you, Danny. Maybe you can explain better how UHAS for Data will support to leverage data and to mobilize data in Europe. You already provided some information before. Maybe you can provide more detail now.
Yes, and just to reinforce the position of UHAS for Data and the commitment of ITI as the coordinator of UHAS for Data, and also BDVA as the promoter of and the ISPs of promoters of this project. The commitment with this challenge and this exciting challenge to compose the data spaces and the common data spaces in Europe. In the project, we have defined some the work package structure, and we will work in this this toolkit of federated data services, trying to standardize and also to work on standards for interoperability between these services, and also addressing the legal and ethical and legal issues regarding data sharing, data governance, working with all the stakeholders. We think we have in the project as partners some of the key players in the data arena in Europe, some of the coordinators of previous projects, data platforms, data incubators, and so on. And we think all joined together can provide these guidelines for helping to create these European common data spaces. We will start from some reference models. For example, IDSA is in the project. This can be as a starting point, but we will analyze other models in order to provide our own model for the data sharing, data space. And we will end up with an own model. One important thing in UHAS for Data is that we will start working with companies. I mean, we will need to be ready with all these services, this catalog of services at month 4 or 5 of the project. So we will work very quickly at the beginning of the project in order to be prepared to offer a set of services to companies and deploy those experiments in the first open call. So we will work very hard at the beginning.
Okay, thank you very much. We are almost reaching the end of this session of the workshop. So I think before closing the session, maybe I will invite each of you to provide a final remark. So 1 minute just to wrap up your main thoughts, your main opinion, your intervention, and we will start by Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, if you want just to summarize or to just provide the final remark, you can go there.
Yes, I'm very happy with all the interest in data, all the work that also the Big Value Data Association has done in the past, with also the new project that will be starting now, because data will be so important. And I really have the feeling that for most of the European companies, they really don't know how to go about that, and they don't know how to collect their data, how to use it, how to analyze it, and also how to share it with others for creating win-win situations. So I really hope you will, or many of you will be involved in the European Digital Innovation Hubs. You will be involved in the data spaces, and that Europe can build on your knowledge that you have built up over the last years to make sure that the whole economy will be better in using data, because that will be really important for our future prosperity.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you very much for your intervention and your time. Now, Kimo, if you want to share with us some final thoughts, final remarks.
Yes, thank you. I think if I just draw a parallel of what is happening with the coronavirus and how it has actually emphasized the importance of data sharing, data analysis, and so on. So what has it actually taught us? What have we learned from that about what is important for data use, data availability? One of the first things is if we think of like official statistics on coronavirus, or if we think of a smartphone app that would track our possible contacts with possibly contaminated people, then trust is very important. So building trust. If there is no trust in data collection of personal data, it will not happen. If there's no trust in a tracking app, people will not install the app. Second important thing is quality. So quality of data is extremely important. Just think of an app which is basing its output on erroneous data. So the app will signal an alarm if I have been in close contact with an infected person. But if there's a problem with the data quality of that app, the input data quality, it will give a false alarm, and I will have to go to 14 days confinement for no reason. Nobody appreciates that, just because there was wrong data in the input of that. And the third important thing is performance. So what we have learned from this COVID statistics and that it really matters what is the outcome. So if the outcome is that we manage to reduce the number of infections and to bring the numbers down and keep them down, that is the ultimate indicator, and that we should always keep in mind. Performance is very important, and we should be measuring performance.
Okay, Timo, thanks a lot. Indeed, data are playing a key role in the new era. So thanks for summarizing. Cecile, maybe it's your turn to let's provide some final remarks and thoughts from your side.
Thank you. I'll build on what Kimo just said and Anne-Marie as well. So it's about, okay, besides having the data, we need to use them, exploit them, and with trust. And this is for that, it is very important also to exploit AI technologies developed in Europe, so that we can, decide on the way we want to use AI and under which condition. And for that, we need to also to know which AI tools we are using. So I think I hope that we are providing you with the right tool set so that you can really exploit, deploy, and develop AI tool to exploit the data, make the best use of data to serve the community. And I want also to thank the BDVA and e-robotics for all the work they're doing to build this new PPP, which will play a crucial role in bringing AI, data, robotics communities all together to have a very strong European ecosystem around data, robotics, and AI, and to really have good services for our citizens, and with all the tools we have, to have a good strategic research and innovation and deployment strategy to make it happen in Europe. Thank you for that.
Yes, Cecile, thank you. Indeed, it has been a hard work of both communities to put this everything together. Thanks a lot. Reinhardt.
Yes, thank you very much. Also, first of all, I can only support what Cecile just said. I think it's a very good way forward, what we experienced in the last 2 years or so, when we started to talking more intensively with Big Data Association, and we saw that there is a lot of overlap and mutual benefit in terms of cooperation here. So I think my core message would be, just don't restrict data to something which is virtual. See that the data is really representing the real world and reflects also to actions in the real world when you use robots later on. And yeah, the key message would be let's cooperate and let's exchange and share practice, not only the data itself, but let's share practice on how to run the hubs, how to run ecosystems, and yeah, how to make the leverage for Europe right.
Yeah, indeed, cooperation is key to go further. Thanks a lot, Reinhardt. And finally, Danny, your last remark, last thoughts about that.
Yes, I will highlight the value of iSpaces and big data innovation spaces or innovation hubs in this area of data sharing, data economy, because they are very close connected with the companies, and they are providing this trusted environment that has been mentioned before, in order to generate the conditions that for these companies to launch to share data and to work with big data cross-border and sharing experiences and also applications and needs. So the one important thing for EU hubs for data is this connection to local and reality, and also the connection to other initiatives in that the DIHs have at European level, and that can bring to the local companies all this experience, and then take profit of all these global strategies in Europe, and make more competitive the companies. That is the final objective.
Okay, thank you very much, Danny. And with this last comment, we will close the session. Please remember that all the material of the workshop will be available at the web pages of the BDVA and the PPP, so you can download this material when it's ready. So stay tuned for to these pages and our social media. I would like to thank the 5 speakers for your time, for your availability, for your valuable participation. I know that all of you are very busy, so thank you very much from our side to help us to support this session. And I would like also to thank all the people who joined, who were very active with the question, with the participation. Thank you very much for attending. And again, stay tuned because we will upload all the material to our web pages. So thanks a lot to everyone, and have a nice day and have a nice afternoon. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.